Sorry guys, I had to split that up. I needed to answer a phone call really quickly. So again, equally likely, it's going to happen half of the time. Things like picking an even number on a dice, okay? Then you're going to have something that is very likely, which is, it doesn't have to be this percentage. This is just giving you an estimate. It's like around 75% of the time it will happen. We call that likely. Okay, and that's like 3/4 of the time. Again, that's an estimate. It can be anything like that. So something that's likely is that you'll have homework in Miss Minch's class, okay? It doesn't happen every time. It's not certain, but it's pretty likely. If you were to roll a dice, it's pretty likely you're going to get a number greater than 2, okay? Because you get 3, 4, 5, 6. 4 out of the 6 are greater than 2. 3, 4, 5, 6. So it's likely. It's not certain. It's likely. This is called unlikely. Let me just get these all clear. Oops, sorry. I should give you the percent first. That's around 25%. That's unlikely. And that is about 1 out of 4. Again, these are estimates. So something that's unlikely is that when you roll a dice, you'll get a number that's bigger than 5. So like a 6 is your only number on the dice that's bigger than 5. It can still happen, but you're most likely going to get something 5 or below, okay? So probability, just so we can define it, how likely an event will occur. So event is a word in probability we use just to mean like the thing that's happening. Doesn't mean like an actual event like a birthday party or something like that. But an event is just the thing that you're studying. So like rolling a 1 on a dice, that's called an event, okay? And we like to show probability like this. So if I said what's the probability of rolling a 1, I would say what's the probability of rolling a 1. That's how you write it, okay, on a dice. So let's like on a dice die. I mix that up a lot, guys. That's one of my big mistakes I have in life. I'm really sorry. Even though I've tried to teach myself a million times which one's the plural and which is the singular, I done messed up every time. So I'm really sorry if I confuse you, but I just mean on a singular dice. Okay, so you would say that happens 1 out of 6 times. So its probability happens 1 out of 6 times, because if I was to look at a dice, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, out of 6 options, how many of those are a 1? Only 1 of them. So it happens 1 out of 6 times. If I said, what's the probability of rolling a 3 or lower? Okay. So you just put that P. So the probability of a 3 or lower. So then let me see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 out of 6 options. Okay, so I'm saying how many are a 3 or lower? Let's see how many are those. A 1 is a 3 or lower. A 2 is a 3 or a lower. A 3 is a 3 or a lower. 4 is not. 5 is not. 6 is not. So that means my probability of getting a 3 or a lower happens 3 out of 6 times, or that reduces to 1/2. Okay, you could make them into percentages if you want, and we learned that a while ago. How to make fractions into percents is top divided by bottom times 100. Or you could leave it as a fraction. I don't really care. I actually kind of prefer it as a fraction, just so you know. So probability looks like that. How likely an event will occur. So you always some tips for doing probability is your numerator of your probability is how many times it can happen. And your denominator, okay, is total possibilities. Okay, so if you look up here at our examples, the probability of rolling a 1 on a dice happens 1 out of 6 times, because it can only happen once out of 6. The probability of getting a 3 or lower happens 1, 2, 3 times, because that happens 3 times out of 6, so that reduces to 1/2. If I was to say what's the probability of rolling a 4, I really want to watch this. A lot of kids make this mistake. a 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 out of 6 opportunities on a dice, possibilities. Okay, this is something that kids make a mistake on all the time, and I understand why. It's kind of confusing. A 4 only happens 1 time out of 6. It does not happen 4 out of 6 times. Okay, so really make sure you don't just put the number on the dice on top as your numerator. Okay, it only can happen 1 out of 6 times on a dice. Okay, so again, your tips are to use your numerator. Your numerator is how many times it can happen, and your denominator is the total possibilities. So like the total possibilities for days of the week, 7. Total possibilities for months, 12. Total possibilities when flipping a coin, 2. So you put your total possibilities on the bottom and how many times it can happen on the top. Now, while we might say the probability of rolling a 1 on a dice happens 1 out of 6 times, we know as mathematicians that that's not always the case, okay? And there's a difference there. So these are types of probabilities. All right, types of probs. Probabs. Probab. Okay, because you know me, I don't like to write a lot of stuff if I don't have to. There's 2 different types of probability that you're going to learn about. One of them is called theoretical. Theoretical sounds so fancy. Theoretical. And the other one is called experimental. Okay. So, theoretical is like theory. It's like what a mathematician has come up with. Theoretical is what should happen. Okay, and experimental is what does happen. So this is saying, in theory, if I was to flick a coin 100 times, 100 times flicking coin, theoretically, that means I should get how many of each? I should get 50 heads and 50 tails. Theoretically, because it's half and half. Experimental, though, is if I was to do the same thing and I did it, and let's say I get 62 heads, and that would make 38 tails. Experimental is when you actually do it, what you get, and theoretical is what should happen, okay? Because life just works that way. Now, here's something I want you to think about. If I was to roll a dice 6 times, theoretically, I should roll each number once because each of them should happen 1 time. So, do you think it always happens that way? If you have a dice at home, try it out. If you have a quarter at home or a nickel, dime, penny, Sacagawea dollar, anything, JFK 50 cent, flick it and count. Have someone count with you. Sit with a family member and see. It doesn't always happen that way. But the more you do it, the more likely you are to get closer to the theoretical probability. I guarantee you, if some of you are going to flick a coin twice, I guarantee you, I could do it with this cup coin, guarantee you that some of you are going to get heads, heads, or tails, tails. And you'd say, that's not fair. It's supposed to be 50-50. But over time, if you did it 100 times, do you think you're gonna get 100% heads or 100% tails? No, because over time, the more data you have, the more that it will normal itself out. So let's see, we'll say heads is the one with the heads on it and tails is the one without. So I got a heads. I got a tails, so it worked out for me. Let's keep going. Let's do it out of 6. So I'm at 1 on 1. Oh, that doesn't really count because it just hit that. Man, Miss Minchin should just get better at her flicking. I'm gonna hit the projector. Tails, so I'm at 1 and 2. Tails, so I'm at 1 and 3. Heads, so I'm at 2 and 3. Heads, so I'm at 3 and 3. Okay, so if you just keep going, that didn't, well, I lost it. All right, well, that's under the couch somewhere. Iris can find it later. So that's, again, just to talk about it. Theoretical is what should happen. Experimental is what does happen. So again, I want you to try and test it out yourself. Test out, this pen's not working. Oh, that's way too thick. Test out at home. Find a dice or find a coin and try it out, okay? So that's just your intro notes on probability. Again, so there's a scale. Everything has a scale within here. Start thinking of things in your life that you know, or things that happen in our world that are 100% certain, things that are impossible, things that would be in the middle, equally likely, things that are unlikely, things that are likely, okay? Then you can talk about how probability is how likely an event will occur. And we use a numerator and denominator to figure this out. And then there's different types of probability. There's things that should happen. We call this theoretical probability, what should happen. And we know that's not always true because when we experiment and try it ourselves, we learn what does happen, okay? But we also know that the more you experiment, the closer you're gonna get to the theoretical probability. You have to have a larger sample. Have a good day.